What is going on, everyone? Welcome in to another episode of the Nathan Marzian Show with Brandon Eckel. Brandon, it has been a while. A lot has happened since we've last done one of these. I've obviously talked to you in person about all this stuff, and we just have not had a time to do a podcast. But here we are, and we are going to give our thoughts on the Bucks. Obviously, big news today with them getting rid of Bud. And then we're going to talk about the end of season, go through a little bit of what went down there. We won't get too far into it because it's still a little bit painful, but end of season stuff, Bucks firing Bud. We'll get to NBA playoff thoughts and our playoff predictions the rest of the way, as well as a little bit of NFL stuff. So let's get to it. All right. Bucks obviously lost to the Heat. 5 games, ugly, not fun, terrible. Everyone disliked it. What were your thoughts after Game 5 and, just at the end of the season? Obviously, we know they fired Bud now, but kind of what was your thinking after the season, what you wanted to do, and just how you wanted to go forward, and just overall your kind of thoughts on those last few games?
Yeah, well, as far as the Bud thing goes, we had talked before, and I've never been a huge Bud fan, even after we won the championship. I don't know why. I just didn't really think he was that great of a coach. Now, I also am not going to sit here and blame him for the playoff collapse because for the guys to blow, double-digit leads in back-to-back games, final 6 minutes of the game, that's not just on coaching, that's players and coaching. But it makes me wonder if they gave up a little bit, if they didn't care. I hate to say they didn't care, but they just not only did they not have it, it just seemed like they didn't have the grit that Miami had.
Yeah, and we've talked about, again, I talked to you in person about this. Game 4 honestly felt worse than Game 5 in the moment. Game 4 was kind of the I don't know. It really was the one that made you go, holy crap, like this actually might be the end, and Game 5 was more just confirmation, and Game 5 was more just like when it happened twice in a row, they blow those leads. It happens twice in a row, and I mean, it becomes a joke at that point. You're like, this is just unbelievable. I can't believe that they're doing this twice in a row. And so you couldn't even be that mad at it. You couldn't even be like I was upset, obviously, that they lost. It was frustrating, but I mean, I don't know. You couldn't even be that mad because you're like, they did not deserve to win. They just clearly were not, this team was not going to win a championship. And Giannis struggled. Drew struggled a lot. Bud obviously did not do a good job. And yeah, they just did not put up enough fight. And it was like, yeah, okay, this team wasn't going to win anything. So you kind of just were like, let's move on. Let's try to make some changes. And like one of the good things that you could take from it is, hey, it was such an embarrassing loss that, okay, it could lead to us actually making changes and us actually doing something rather than just kind of, okay, we're going to run it back next year and we're going to do the same thing and all that. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think there's a realistic chance that we could look back on this in a few years and say, hey, this loss was actually like a good thing. And it actually, again, if we get a new coach in here and it really changes things and it really gets us another title, it could end up being something that helped us. So looking at it from that perspective, it could be a positive, but still just such a frustrating end of the season. And as far as changes to the roster, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on potentially breaking up the big four, or the core four is what we call them, and just obviously a lot of people have takes. A lot of people want to right away, oh, we got to blow things up. We got to change things. What's your take?
I don't think that I would. I've been on the change the coaching staff, or at least Bud, and roll with the guys, because to me it kind of shows that during the championship run, a lot of the guys played so well that the coaching almost didn't matter. But now when the guys weren't playing well enough, the coaching actually did matter. So it's, and I know you've talked about this before. I don't like blaming coaches when we lose and not giving them credit when we win. But that's just kind of what it felt like. And it's also weird looking back, thinking back, talking this out because it felt so good throughout the season about this team. Um, and then for them to just downhill spiral and 5 games later your season's done, it's crazy. But I do want the guys back. I really like the role guys, honestly. It just guys didn't step up. We didn't get stops on defense. Changes just weren't made. That's all it was.
Yeah, I definitely want to, I'm not trying to trade any of the main guys. I'm also not going to say that they're untouchable. Obviously Giannis is the only untouchable piece on the team, and I think Drew, Chris, and then we don't know if they're going to bring back Brooke, but like if you're assuming Chris probably accepts his player option, and then people want to trade Drew. Again, am I going to listen to calls for Drew? Yes. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm never trading Drew, but I'm not out here trying to trade him. I think my plan after the season was, okay, keep the core four, get a new coach in here, which they now have, and get one more role guy. Make a trade with your role players, Bobby, Grayson, to get a impactful playoff guy, and just someone that you're confident can, make an impact in the playoffs. And then you're kind of in a good position again. Because to me, the main guys, it's not like they have shown that they're falling off. Drew has been bad offensively in the playoffs, but that's nothing new. Giannis obviously is good. Chris did not look, he didn't look terrible or anything. It was like he got back into form towards the end of the season and was good in the playoff series. Like I'm not, I honestly don't have many doubts that he'll look good next year. And then Brooke was, as good as he's been as a Buck. So it's like, if it would be different if you really felt like, man, these guys are losing they're losing it. Like they just don't have it anymore. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think a lot of it was coaching. Like I keep thinking to myself, yes, we could make a bunch of changes to the roster, and they're going to need to make some. I think the role players need to be tinkered and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm like, I do really believe that if we had a better coach, we'd still be playing right now. And that's how I feel. And it's like you would have been able to close out game 4. You would have been able to close out game 5. Like that stuff would not have happened to me with a better coach. And so that's why I'm like, I don't think you need to just completely overhaul this. Now, again, if you get some crazy offer for Drew or some crazy offer for Chris or whatever, okay, I'm not going to sit here and say that you can't trade those guys, but I'm not out here trying to do whatever I can to get rid of those guys and change things and, completely overhaul everything. So yeah, I mean, obviously, though, plenty of blame to go around. I mean, Giannis was not his best in the fourth quarter of Game 5 and missed a bunch of free throws, and the whole offense stunk in the fourth quarters of those 2 games. Which again, a lot of it does come down to Bud, but some of it's missing shots, but some of it's just they didn't run much offense down the stretch. They just seemed to, I don't know, they got stagnant, and it's been a problem for a while. But like I said, it could end up being a good thing if a new coach in here can now get things going again, and maybe rejuvenate this offense, and we get just a kind of shot of life. We need something. We need to change something because you only have so many years of prime Giannis, and it's like you gotta take advantage while you can. You can't be sitting here waiting around and just we'll run it back again, and another year goes by. It's like no, you got to be trying to be proactive here and making changes like right when you need to make them. And so that's why I was glad that they did this today. I was,
we've been waiting for it.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised because I didn't know if they would. I had a feeling that they were just going to give him one more year and say, hey, Giannis was hurt and he's dealing with personal stuff, which that sucked. I feel bad for him, but like, yeah, I just felt like they might give him a pass there and give him another year. And it's just like, again, when you have Giannis, I don't want to be just handing out second chances. And it's like, no, we have to be taking advantage here. So, yeah, I mean, the news today, they get rid of him. And obviously everyone's thoughts immediately go to, okay, well, who's going to replace him? Nick Nurse is the main name that's being thrown out there. understandably, because he's the one guy that has experience, has been there before, people know of him. So like naturally everyone's gonna kind of gravitate towards his name. What are your thoughts on Nick Nurse?
I do like Nick Nurse. I'm a little concerned about how he runs his starters like dogs, but maybe that's something we need. Um, I mean, one thing I want to say too is like some of the role guys weren't too bad. Like Pat was pretty consistent all playoffs. Grayson, played his role well. There's a Bobby conversation that needs to be had that people need to hear that you and I have been talking about. Um, but with that being said, I like him because I know we kind of talked about it. I feel like the Raptors just weren't very talented. Um, like Pascal Siakam, solid, not a superstar in my opinion. So it's like he did a lot with, um, not the Bucks roster, not the top three that the Bucks have, obviously.
Yeah, I like Nick Nurse. I'm not as high on him maybe as some of the people that are, that I'm seeing out there, but
Hmm.
he's definitely I think he's still definitely my top guy. I mean, you look at he's known for, like you said, playing the starters big minutes, which would be a big adjustment. And you'd have to make sure Giannis is on board with that and the main guys because they're not used to that. They're usually playing 32 minutes, 30 minutes a game.
Hmm.
He's probably going to play them upwards of like, 37, 38. I do think it would honestly, I think it would give Giannis like a crazy advantage for winning MVP. The
Hmm.
numbers he would put up in 36, 37 minutes a game would be like astronomical. But yeah, you have to make sure that that's something that either the guys are okay with doing, or if they're not, that Nurse is okay not doing. And the other thing he's known for, he makes a ton of in-game adjustments defensively, which again,
Yeah.
that's what we were missing with Bud. That's the
Yeah.
main number. That's the number one complaint with Bud is he doesn't change things during the game. He'll adjust game to game, but he's not going to adjust in game. Nurse does, and that's a good thing. And that is definitely something that I think would be again different, but I think that's a good thing. Um, and then you know, I've read that he has some pretty complicated schemes and he kind of just, again, on a whim, he'll kind of change stuff and he'll throw out some crazy stuff, which again, to me is a good thing compared to what they were doing before. I think, I don't know, just having someone that's willing to, you know, go out of the box and just do stuff on the fly, I think is a good thing. I think that that's, again, something the Bucks have missed or the Bucks have needed is someone willing to do that.
Hmm.
I think honestly, the biggest thing with him compared to some of the other candidates is, again, like I said, just that he's been there before. I don't know if anyone is really crazy about the idea of hiring like a first year head coach when you're, again, in the middle of Giannis's prime, trying to capitalize right now. I'm not really comfortable throwing out a first year person, that
Hmm.
hasn't been there before, that's never won anything, that's just they've never coached in the NBA. And so that's why a lot of people are just like, let's go with Nick Nurse, and I don't know. Do you think that they already had someone in mind, and that's why they did this so early in the offseason is like, we don't wanna wait and let our guy possibly go to someone else?
I think that could be part of it. And obviously Nick Nurse not taking a job. Um, not I don't even know like how many jobs there are out there, if any, right now. But like him kind of waiting around also shows that because he could have been pursuing a different team. Um, but yeah, otherwise, I mean, I just think it'd be weird to keep him around and then it's 2 months in the summer and now the guy's sitting here as your head coach. You're like, actually, we're gonna fire you. So I'm glad they didn't sooner than later. Give him a little time after the playoffs, and obviously after his brother passing away. Um, so yeah.
And I also just, you know, I do wanna say, like, we don't need to look at in any way, we don't need to look at Bud as, like, in any bad light,
Hmm.
Bud was a good coach. Bud took us from, you know, a decent team to a perennial championship contender and a really great team, and we had the best record in the NBA by far in his tenure here, and, like, obviously won us a title. There, we can say, "Hey, the time came where we needed a change, but we still got to be grateful for everything he did. He's a good dude. Like there's no reason to have any ill will towards him. Wherever he goes, we'll be rooting for him. And I also just, I don't know, the whole Giannis carried him to a title thing to me is kind of bullshit because like he did his part in, I'm not saying he had a coaching masterclass in the 2021 playoffs. I'm not acting like he was, out there just doing crazy stuff and his coaching was off the charts, but he did enough to, obviously get us out of some holes. And, we were down 2-0 against the Nets. We were tied 2-2 with the Hawks, and Giannis got hurt, still got us to the finals, down
Yeah.
2-0 in the finals. Defensively made some really nice adjustments in the finals and, like, honestly outcoached Monty Williams in the finals. Did Giannis help? Absolutely. Was Giannis the biggest reason we won the title? Absolutely. But, like, that doesn't mean Bud did nothing and we won. There's people out there that legitimately think we won in spite of Bud, and that's just not true. So he deserves more, like, some credit with that, and
Mhm.
he played his part in winning the title, and so again, we gotta be grateful for that, and we gotta, show our respect to him for that because, um, ultimately, if I had told you when Bud took over in 2018 that, "Hey, over the next, 5 years, we're gonna be the number 1 seed 3 times, we're gonna have the best record in the league over these 5 years by, like, 30 games, and we're gonna win a championship," I'm pretty sure you'd all take that, so
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so it was definitely a successful tenure, but again, it was time to move on. It's time to get a new voice in here. It's time to get a new person here. And the other thing with hiring, like again, first year compared to kind of I don't know, someone with more experience. And to me, you don't need to they don't need some home run hire here. They don't need someone that's this unbelievable coach. You just need someone that again, I think they just need to be able to do some of those things that Bud struggled with, and, like, to me, I think Nick Nurse is probably the best with that, and I think he's probably the safest, and I think he's probably the one that fits this the best of, like, yes, he's a good coach. Is he perfect by any means? No. Is he this is his if he was such an amazing, amazing, amazing coach, he probably wouldn't be available right now, but like, that's okay. It doesn't mean like I don't know. I think we need to just kinda take a safer route and a more it's more like they just need a new voice in here rather than like a complete again, like a complete overhaul or like a total change in the other direction or anything like that. Um, so yeah, and that's compared to like again, some of these other candidates. I have a list actually. They came out with betting odds for the next head coach.
Oh, did they? I have one other name that I potentially like, so
Who?
I haven't seen this list.
Who is your name?
Mr. Frank Vogel.
Ugh. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's probably better than some of the other candidates, but I'll give you the rundown of these are the
He's
odds.
not even on the list?
No, I'll give you the
Okay,
odds.
okay.
Charles Lee 2-1,
Wow, those are low
Nick
odds.
Nurse 3-1, Kenny Atkinson 4-1, Adrian Griffin 5-1, Chris Quinn 6-1, Frank Vogel 8-1, Jay Wright 10-1, Steve Nash 12-1, Steven Silas 14-1, Jerry Stackhouse 16-1, Becky Hammond 18-1, Scott
Years.
Brooks 20-1. So
Years
those are
stacked
the odds
up.
right now. Yeah.
Preston's gotta
But
be happy. Does he know about that?
no, I haven't showed it to him yet. But ultimately, I do think it's gonna come down to either I'm honestly pretty confident in saying it'll probably be Nick Nurse.
I am too. It feels like one of those things where so many people are talking about it that that's what it's gonna be. I don't know a ton about Kenny Atkinson, but I know he did a good job with the Nets till he got pushed out. If I had to guess, I don't think Steve Nash would be coaching again. I think he's scarred for life. And um, Steven Silas, he's definitely not getting a head coaching job. I can promise you that, at least this year. Um, I like Vogel. My thing with him is like, he was with the Laker team that it's always tough to coach LeBron because you're, you know, pretty much a half coach. And he did a good job of the Pacer team that wasn't super talented. Um, back in the PG George Hill days. Roy Hibbert. I mean, does that scream talent? No. So, um, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of surprised Charles Lee is the favorite, just because, like we talked, the first year head coach thing. But
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's only a few guys on here that I'm really like it's really about, okay, are you confident in this person coming in and winning a title immediately? Because we're
Mhm.
trying to win titles immediately. This is not a wait 3 years thing and then they're ready. No, like this is, can you do it right away? Nick Nurse, yes, like I would be pretty confident that he can do it. I'm not, this isn't, you don't know that they will, but just that they can do it, yes. Um,
It's
Jay
good
Wright,
value.
no. Yeah.
3 to
Jay
1.
Wright, Jay Wright, I love, but like, yeah, I'm not hiring a guy who's never coached the NBA ever, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way I'm confident that Jay Wright's gonna come here and win a title immediately. I just no. Honestly, Vogel is probably up there of like, okay, he's at least again been an NBA coach recently, won a title recently. With most of these guys, I'm not gonna act like I know everything they do and their systems and all that because I don't. Um, I've read stuff about Nurse, so like I know a little bit about him, but with most of these guys, it's like I don't really know. I trust that they'll be able to figure it out, and whoever they hire is obviously going to get like Giannis's seal of approval, and um, yeah, I mean they'll make a decision.
Let me ask you this too about Charles Lee. And I do not mean this in a negative way at all, but like, do you think that it wouldn't be much of a change and he's not a good hire because he's been under Coach Bud? Or
Um, it
do
makes me
you
a
think,
little hesitant. Anyone in the Budenholzer tree where you're just like, I don't know. If you're gonna fire him, go away from that. Like, otherwise, it's like, why wouldn't you just keep Bud? Like, I don't know, because Bud's not a bad coach. Again, we're like nobody's saying he's a bad coach. It's just that like to get you over the hump and win you more titles, he might not be the guy to do it.
yeah.
But if you're gonna keep someone that has his styles, and I don't know for sure that anyone from his coaching tree, like they're not gonna be the exact same style, but it's just like I don't know anyone who kind of has those philosophies and those styles and those schemes and all that. Like I'm almost like, well, Bud was at least safe to like be good for a regular season and have a chance in
Mhm.
the playoffs. You might as well have just kept Bud at that point. Um, and like I know, so Becky Hammond's from that tree. Like you said, obviously Charles Lee is the assistant. Like I'm just kind of like, that wouldn't excite me a ton.
I do like that they're kind of showing like, hey, this guy won us a championship just a few years ago, and we're ready to move on because we don't feel great about it. So I think that's good, and I know a lot of teams do kind of do that nowadays. It's tough for coaches to stick around in an organization that shows a lot with Spoelstra being with the Heat for so long, and that was also part of it. Getting out coached and outplayed in that series, but yeah, I like Nurse, and I'd say Vogel's probably second, and then maybe Atkinson third for me. But like you, I don't really know a ton about these guys. I've just know from what I've seen and how their teams have performed. So
Yeah, and I think it's 3 of the last 4 championship coaches have been fired. Nurse in 2019, Vogel 2020, Bud 2021, and then last year was Kerr. So
that's
kind of
wild.
funny. But again, I mean, like you said, it's the nature of the game now. It's like it's just about who can get you over the hump again, and who can
Hmm.
you know it. It's kind of just how it is. That you win a title, and yes, you're set for like a little bit, but I mean, if you show that you can't sustain it, then it's like, okay, like we're gonna try to get someone in here who can. And I know that that seems unfair, but I'd much rather have that than just being content. Like the Mavs were content with Carlisle for so long,
Yeah.
and it's just like I wouldn't want that. I'd want to. If you're looking back on Giannis's career 10 years from now, I want to be like, okay, if he never won another title, at least we gave it different options. We gave it different chances. We're not just doing the exact same thing over and over and over.
Hmm.
And it's like, let's just put different guys out there and or someone different out there and see if they can change it and see what happens. Cause it's like clearly something was off. They'd won one playoff series in the last 2 years. So it's like, okay, it's time to move on. Um, so all right. Is that enough Buck stuff? Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, it felt good to talk about it, but don't love talking about it too much.
Really quick,
Yeah,
trade candidate. Bobby Portis. I mean, I've talked to you about this.
yeah.
So I obviously want to trade. I want to trade Bobby Portis. We kind
Can
of know
you
this.
can you tell everyone real quick why? Because you and I agree, but just for anyone in the
Yeah, and
comments
I've
that doesn't
covered
know.
this. I tweeted this. I've said this on the Green and Growing podcast I do with Sparky. So I mean I have said this quite a bit, but I'll reiterate. Love Bobby. Love his energy. Love his rebounding. I think he's like I love him. I love Bobby Portis. I'm not at all anti Bobby Portis, but we're trying to win a championship. His defense is bad. He's not a playoff guy. He's not a 16 game guy. He's like an 82 game guy. He's a regular season guy that, he can put up double doubles and he can, um, you know, be a six man of the year candidate. But really, ultimately, is he helping you win a championship? Not really. He hasn't had many good playoff series since coming to the Bucks. Um, Again, he brings you energy and he brings you good vibes, but like, is he really helping you win the championship? Not really. And to me, for a guy that has a lot of value, or at least a decent amount of value, like
Mhm.
you can get stuff for Bobby Portis. Why? Like, there's not a place on this team, in my opinion, for a person who has value, is good in the regular season, but doesn't help you really win a championship. It's like we're only trying to win a championship.
Yeah.
That's our thing. Like with the way the NBA is now, too, it's like the playoffs are a totally different beast than the regular season. You can be as good as you want in the regular season. It doesn't really matter. It's about those couple months at the end. If you're not going to help us at that time, okay. And again, when you have trade value too, it's like you're basically, if we just keep them around, it feels like a waste of value to me. It feels like we're just hanging on to this guy that has value, but like isn't really helping us. And he's kind of just there. Um, in my opinion, trade him. A guy that I had my eye on is Tyus Jones of
Mhm.
the Grizzlies. Because I think this team could use a pure point guard, a ball handler, an offensive initiator, because Drew just is not that in the playoffs. And um, his defense is great, but his offense it's a struggle. He's a little hectic, some bad decision making and all that. So it's just like I want a pure point guard. I want someone who I can trust a little bit to run the offense. I just think, and Tyus Jones isn't anything spectacular, but just to me, he's more valuable come playoff time for this team than Bobby Portis is.
Can we get Laravia in that deal
Sure.
or Kennard?
You love Luke Kennard.
Listen, the guy shoots over 40% from three in the playoffs. Bobby
He's
always drops off.
Yeah, and uh Kennard, honestly, I think is a top 3 shooter in the league, maybe
Yeah.
second.
He shot
But
45% the past 4 regular seasons.
I think he was 53% this year,
He was
51%.
yeah, he was like so he was 45 I think with LA, and then once he got to Memphis, um he was 43% or 53%.
I was gonna say I knew it was over 50. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, this year 54, 44.7. Clippers year before 45 and then 44 and a half.
That dude just drains threes, man.
And this year playoff he was 50% from 3.
Yeah. I
Just a
mean,
shooter.
but yeah, to me it's like, hey, I mean, okay, let's do Bobby and Grayson for Tyus Jones, Luke Kennard.
I'm very happy with that. It's an
We just
upgrade.
turned Grayson into a better shooter, and we get a guy that's more playoff suited or more suited for the playoffs than Bobby Portis.
Mhm.
So that'd be a huge win. But yeah, ultimately, it's like that's my thing is you keep the core four, you get rid of your coach, which they did, and you get one more playoff guy in here by trading someone like a Bobby or a Grayson or both or whatever. You get another playoff impact player, and then I think you're in good shape to um, be a championship team again next year. So,
Yeah.
all right, on to other playoff stuff. Who right now is your pick to win the NBA Finals?
I'm gonna go with the Denver Nuggets because they feel like they're meshing well, they're trending the right way. Feels a little bit Milwaukee Bucksy from a few years ago where they have now the, two-time MVP. People are questioning a little bit. I like Mike Malone as a coach. Their guys are finally healthy. If Jamal Murray can play at the right level, they can get Porter Jr. to keep scoring for them. I just like that team. I like their 7, 8 guys.
Yeah. I I think I do if I had to bet right now, I think I would pick the Nuggets. To me, it honestly will either be Nuggets. I think either Nuggets, Warriors, or Celtics are the 3 that I feel like I'm like, could the Lakers beat the Warriors? Yes, but I honestly don't see the Lakers beating the Warriors and then the Nuggets and then whoever they have to play in the finals. I just don't see that happening.
After beating, it wasn't a much of a series, but after beating also Memphis, who
Yeah, that just I don't know. The Lakers are fine, they're pretty good, but I don't see them as being that good that they're just gonna roll through all those teams. If they do, okay, I'll be proven wrong. But um, obviously I could see Golden State doing it. They've done it plenty of times. And then the Nuggets are looking really good right now. Phoenix is starting their bench just sucks.
yeah, it's bad.
They scored like 4 points the other night.
I just I'm not gonna blame them for trading for KD, but it's like
No, yeah.
how many teams have we seen, want to get all these superstars together and they're like, oh shit, like we have these 3 guys and we have a bunch of scrubs. It's like, well, yeah, because you traded everybody. You can't play them 48 minutes and expect them to, be 100% all 40 minutes, whatever. So,
Warriors just won 127 to 100, by the way.
a little smackdown.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Boston obviously is good. I like again, could Philly beat Boston? Yes, but do I see Philly winning 2 more series after that? No. Um, even if they did beat Boston. So I just to me, those are the 3 that I think I'm pretty confident could win the title. I was thinking about it today and I was like, man, it really does feel like the Nuggets season this year is gonna be like the Bucks in 2021.
Yeah.
You've had some playoff failure. Your guy's got 2 MVPs, but no rings. People are kind of down on him this year. Nobody wants to give him credit. Nobody wants to give him another MVP, which is okay. I'm not saying that's wrong because people are just like, he hasn't won it. Why should we give him another one? Same with Giannis in 2021. And so everyone's kind of ready to just like not be done with you, but just kind of be like, okay, this is a regular season guy. He's not doing anything in the playoffs. And it's like for him to have a huge playoff run and win the title and like shut everyone up would be so similar to what Giannis did in 2021.
Hmm.
Um, and they're a likable team. I feel like they got Jokic and now they got their second guy in Jamal Murray, which is like their Chris Middleton. Um, so yeah, it just I don't know. There's a lot of similarities to me. It just feels like I could totally see that happening. It just would feel a lot like the Bucks in 2021 to me, where they kind of finally break through. Jokic finally breaks through, really cements himself as like, yeah, this dude's legit, and all that.
And I just feel more confident, I guess, in like even if the Warriors were to pull it off, I feel way more confident in them, even if they had to play like Boston again. Um, I know Boston's another team that's been good, but just like when they play bad, they play really bad, and that's kind of the same thing with Philly. And I'm not going to sit here and say the Bucks weren't the same thing because obviously, to a certain point they were against the Heat, but I just I feel like the winner is going to come out of the West, with it being either I would agree Denver or Golden State, which is weird because Golden State felt dead in the water halfway through the season. So
Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny that now we're kind of more confident in the West because it felt like all year, okay, it's probably gonna be either us or Boston, maybe Philly, but you were kind of like Nuggets, meh, Warriors, meh. Um, that was kind of it. Like it was like, is
yeah.
anyone? And then the Suns emerged once they got KD, but even then, you were kind of like, is their depth good enough? I don't know. There just were question marks, and so it's just interesting how it's changed and how all of a sudden it's like, oh, the Nuggets look good, and Warriors are clicking now, and all that, and so
Hmm.
ultimately, I think we're gonna, we talk about all this, but the league will make sure it's Lakers Celtics in the finals.
They might.
If the Lakers freaking beat the Nuggets on some like if they beat the Warriors and the Nuggets and like there's some, questionable calls or like I don't know, if some weird stuff's happening, I am gonna be convinced the NBA is rigged.
Would Draymond complain or would he praise LeBron if that happened?
Oh, he'd praise LeBron. He'd be on the podcast. Man, we just lost to the GOAT.
His
Nothing
caption:
you can do. Nothing you can do.
"Lost to the goat." ... Oh well.
Um, who would you say has been your biggest surprise team in the playoffs in a good way, like a good surprise team? Obviously, the worst was the Bucks. Would you say
Um,
Miami?
yeah, I guess.
Because there's been plenty. I mean, I think Miami's been a nice surprise. I think the Nuggets, honestly, as they're a 1 seed, but they still have, like, looked really good, and, to be up 2-0 on the Suns, like, it's been a little bit of a surprise, and then Knicks were a surprise that they, destroyed the Cavs, like, the way they did, so
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'd kind of agree with that. I mean, otherwise, kind of a sleeper team. I think the Knicks because at least me, I didn't think they were just going to run through Cleveland the way they did.
yeah.
Um, and I know, Cleveland's still pretty young. They just got Mitchell this year, but it felt like maybe, they'd take that step and, there's kind of the Knicks hype but they lived up to it. And even with a little bit of injuries. Um, and then even shout out to the Kings because I mean, some people are like, oh, they're just gonna fall over against Golden State and then push the series out to 7. So
Yeah, our Kings.
our Kings, yeah,
Um, yeah, I would still my pick would still be Miami because it's like obviously it was surprising they beat us and it wasn't just that like the Bucks sucked, like they played really, really well.
hmm
The Heat did. Their shooting has been off the charts. They've lost players and still just been, they just keep humming. And, they lost Hero and their offense was still great. And then they lost Jimmy in game 2 of the Knicks series and they still nearly won the game. They were up with like late in the fourth. And it's just like, how are they doing this? They're down Jimmy, Hero, Oladipo. They don't have a very good roster to begin with. And it's like their role players are just stepping up. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, like they're just playing out of their minds. So Kevin Love, you got to give those guys credit. And just the fact that I don't know, as of less than a month ago, you're like, okay, this team sucks. And now you're like, I'm honestly convinced they could make the finals. Um, it's just crazy the turnaround they've had and just how good they've looked. And credit a lot of it to coaching. Spoelstra's a freaking genius.
yeah, yeah, he is. I know you're telling me the other day in the car about some of the stuff he was doing and drawn up offensively. Um, and he's another guy where it's like team feels dead in the water. They, a lot of the guys are a little bit aged. Not the most talented team, but they rally behind their coach because they know he's going to come prepared. So hopefully, that'll be the same with the Bucks next head coach. I think we gotta have a little bit of a culture change.
All right. Playoff MVP so far. If you just had to pick MVP of the playoffs as of this moment, not like who you think will end up being, but just this moment.
Yeah, man. I mean, Jokic comes to mind first, but I know some of his stats aren't always high. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Steph because of that wild game 7. Um, he's so consistent for them. He helped them win on the road when Clay was what 1 of 10 from 3. And then they go get one tonight. I know they lost game 1, but at the end of the day, he also gets hounded all freaking game, and I think that makes it even more amazing. And I'm not going to sit here and just be a apologist for him and say, oh, he gets it just because he's gets guarded the hardest. But I guess he's the first one that comes to mind next to Jokic.
I'm gonna say Jimmy, but
Yeah, I
it
mean
could
that's
it it could definitely change after this series. Because again, some of it you could honestly chalk up to just like the Bucks kinda the Bucks it was a lot of coaching where they just like didn't try that hard to really like were they trying to stop him? Yes, but they didn't throw everything at him. They didn't do anything like that. Whereas again, Steph is guarded that way all the time. Um,
yeah.
so after this series, like if Steph keeps it up, wins this series, and then if Jimmy's kind of average or they lose this series, then I could easily change. But as of right now, I'd probably say Jimmy. Just that first round was insane.
Yeah.
So I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I
I
can't be overlooking that. I guess I was same thing as you kinda said where it's like, I feel like it was a lot more of the Bucks just didn't know what the hell they were doing against him, and props to him, he made his shots. Like, he played amazing, one of the best performances in the playoffs I've seen, so he's right up there with Steph. But yeah, I think I kinda overlook it just 'cause I was like, "Ah, we didn't have a game plan for him, clearly."
playoff fraud watch. And it's not Giannis because Giannis played 2 freaking games and he wasn't even bad. So who's your playoff fraud as of right
Yeah.
now? Or who's at least on fraud watch?
Um, like, even so if they've been eliminated, it still counts, or
Yeah, I mean, if they've been eliminated, it's like maybe they were confirmed as a fraud.
I gotta go Donovan Mitchell. I really thought he would step up and carry
Interesting.
the Cleveland team, and he was really bad in, like, 3 of those games. Didn't shoot the ball well. Even when he does shoot well, he still hasn't found the perfect balance, and I love Mitchell, I really do. He does not have the balance of knowing when to heat check versus when to like take over. And anytime he's kind of the lead scorer, I think he thinks that he has to have the ball in his hands every play. He has to take every shot, initiate the offense every play. And it's like he's not at that level yet. Missed a lot of open shots. So I guess that'd be me. Especially, hey, he went back to New York where he was supposed to go and laid some eggs. So
That's a good one. That's a good one. I honestly didn't think of that one, but I think mine. Look, he swept his first round series, so I'm not acting like that they needed him to be a lot better. But he swept his first round series. It's Embiid, okay? He swept his first round series. Didn't put up the great numbers though. They win game 1 without him, and then he comes back and they get blown out. So I'm just saying he's on watch. If they
he's on
lose
the
this
radar.
series, he's averaging 18 a game right now in the playoffs.
Wow. Yeah, he's on fraud alert.
Now again, I'm not gonna act like counting stats are the only thing that matters because he didn't need to do a ton in that first round series, and they really they were throwing doubles at him and stuff, but still, it's like that's what happens to a great player is you're gonna get double teamed. You're gonna but the really, really great guys still put up their 25 to 30 a game. And I don't know. Obviously he's had his playoff struggles before. And I'm
Mhm.
just saying if they want to lose this series and he doesn't, put up some huge performances, like I don't know. I'm not saying he's sucks or anything, but it'll be one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm never gonna believe in this guy in the playoffs. Like I'm never gonna do it.
Especially because in this, it might be a little bit of the MVP syndrome. He gets it. He knows, he was leading candidate,
He won his
and
title, man. That's his championship.
yeah, I mean that's also half of it. Yeah, they were worried about that, and he finally got it. But
I know we joke about it, but I do think there's some truth to it where like I feel like I he literally said in an interview where he was like, "Well, winning titles isn't the only thing that matters." And I'm like, "How can you say that, dude? Like you are it's
glad that's
just
not my superstar.
yeah, I'm just like whereas Giannis is the opposite, whereas Giannis is like, I don't care, I'm just trying to win a championship. And
Yeah,
Embiid's out here like, well, people only care about championships, but that's not all that matters. I'm like, how are you saying this? It's
yeah,
like and this was like a month ago. I'm like, you're about to go into the playoffs and you're saying this stuff. It's just a totally different mentality to me. But
yeah.
whatever.
And I forgot the other thing I was gonna say, but just along the lines of, them caring about the MVP more. Um, And I guess just now he's got to live up to it. It's all right. You finally got your MVP you've been asking for, and I think the vote. And I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't deserve it because he had a great season, and I think finally they rewarded him. But now they're like, all right, you got it. So show us why you won MVP. Um, and I would bet a lot of money that he doesn't ever win another one, which is no shame to him. I mean, winning one is amazing, but I think the voters are going to say, all right, we gave you one, now F off.
So Clay was 8 of 11 from 3 tonight. I knew he was good. I didn't realize he was 8 of 11 from 3.
He
Um,
showed up.
uh, do we think Giannis has a really good chance to win MVP next year?
Um, I mean, I love your point about him playing under Nick Nurse. Um,
Even without that, though, I honestly feel like he's gonna come out pissed off,
Mhm.
and I do feel like, and I said this at the end of this past season where I was like, it does feel like that it almost is like reverse voter fatigue where people are like, okay, we've gone away from this dude a few years, and like
Yeah, bring it
I
back.
think most of us can agree he's still arguably probably the best player,
Yeah.
and so we should get him another one as long as he keeps doing this. And it's like if he just goes out and has another season of like 30, 12, and 5, unless someone else has some insane season, it's like I just feel like, and again, if the Bucks are one of the top seeds, it's like I don't see how I could just see people being like, okay, we got to give another one to Giannis.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I could totally see that. Um, is Jaylen Brown a free agent this year,
Uh,
or is it the
I
following?
think it's next year. I
Okay,
think I don't know exactly though.
because I was gonna say maybe, Tatum finally creeps in there if Brown's gone, but, no, that's a very good point with Giannis because now it being, what, 3 years or, like, 4 years ago that he won. Um,
Truly,
yeah.
with Tatum, I mean, he's really good. I don't think he's ever gonna have the consistency.
And it's kind of opposite of Luka, who puts up, like, 32, 8, and 8, but his team just are like, "Okay, well, you didn't make the playoffs." So,
Yeah, you're
it's like
not
you're
gonna get
putting up
it.
great numbers, and then whereas Tatum, yeah, it's like, you'll look, "Oh, he had 11 points last night,
Yeah.
and, oh, he had 8 turnovers." I'm not saying Giannis doesn't have, big turnover games, but, it just yeah, it's not there, and it's a little bit, I think, to do with he has to create his own shot a lot.
Yeah, and
Goes a lot
again,
of ISO.
it's not a huge knock on him. He's still great. He's still good enough to like win them a championship and whatever. But it's just like I don't know, to win MVP, to be regarded as like the best player,
Mhm.
you that stuff has to be so rare. Like the chance of Giannis scoring less than like 15 points in a game is so rare.
Yeah.
And like Tatum had 7 points last night.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he 1 of 7 from the floor.
That I don't know. I know he didn't have a lot because
I think
obviously
he
he
was
was
1 of 7. He made 1 shot, and it's like, that just doesn't happen to like, these great, great, great players, and again, it's not his I'm not sitting here calling him, like, a fraud or anything, he's good. People don't call him the best player, so I'm not gonna it's not like he's overrated. It's just there's a reason he's not considered that, and it's because has these games, he has these stretches, you know, at the beginning of this year, he was really more consistent with it, and it felt like he had eliminated that. And then he went back to it, and he had some bad stretches, and he had some bad games, and it was like, okay, he's still not the top tier guy because, he's still doing this, which is okay. Again, it's not does it just means that you're not the top tier guy.
yeah, he was, 0 for 3 from 3 last night. He had 4 games last playoffs that he scored less than 15 points and, 5 where he scored under 20. He had 1 in every series. He had the 10-point game against us, 41 minutes, 10 points, 10 points in 41 minutes against Miami, and then 12 in game 1 of the finals and 13 in game 6, which I'm not gonna sit here and hound on the guy for having bad finals games because he also had, multiple very good performances, 27, 23, 26, 28. But it's also like
Again,
Giannis
those are
out there dropped 50. That's not
yeah,
great. It was
the
good, not great.
27, 23, 26, 28. Again, and we're comparing him to
MVP.
the top tier MVP guy. Those are like minimal game, like those are your just completely average games. Those aren't your good
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
All right. Enough NBA. Um, did I give I said who yeah, my fraud watch, I gave mine when it was Embiid.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick before we go,
Yeah.
Packers stuff, just briefly, Rodgers trade happened, finally. They get rid of Rodgers, uh and they traded number 15 in the draft, and they got 13. They got a second rounder this year, and they got a conditional first
Mhm.
next year, as long as Rodgers plays like 60% of the snaps. And so, your thoughts on the trade first, and then we'll get into just quickly the draft.
I'm good with the trade. I think it worked itself out. I love Rodgers. I've not been a guy that's going to sit here and blame Rodgers for a bunch of stuff, but um, after 3 years of the off season, just same shit. Oh, I don't know if I'm coming back. This, that. I was just like, you know what? I'm just done. I want a guy who's locked in and ready. We took the chance moving up to get love, whether people like it or not. So it's like you might as well try it. And I think, and then overall, I think we had I like our draft. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know college football guys because I really don't. Um, More of a college basketball guy. Um, but yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, the trade, I'm a huge Rodgers guy. I've always been just
Hmm.
a very big Rodgers defender, supporter. Um, but yeah, it was time, and I think the whole process being dragged out kind of helped people accept it and just be like, "Yeah, whatever," Even I was just kind of like, "I'm ready for this to be over." Um, I'm still gonna root for him. I'm still gonna be a big Rodgers fan, but it's like I'm fine moving forward with Love. Even if we struggle, it's gonna be a refreshing season. It's gonna be something that's necessary to see how good Love is and to just go forward with the next era.
Yeah,
Um, so I had no problem with it. I thought they got a decent return as well, that they got basically a second and a first, and, you moved up a couple spots.
yeah.
So I was happy with it. I was very happy with it. As far as what they did with those picks, first round, and again, like you said, we're not huge college football guys. We're not huge. We don't know these players that well. I was more just looking at what positions they take.
Hmm.
Um, they took linebacker first round, Lucas Van Ness from Iowa. Tight end in the second round, Luke Musgrave. Then they went receiver, Jaden Reed. They went another tight end in the third round, Tucker Kraft. D line, fourth round, Colby Wooden out of Auburn. Fifth round, Sean Clifford out of Penn State. And
Interesting pick.
then another wide receiver, round five, Don Tavion Wicks. Then they went D line round six. They went kicker round six. They went corner round seven. They went running back round seven. They went safety round seven. And they went another receiver, Grant Dubose, round seven. Um, but yeah, going into it, I was like, okay, we definitely are gonna, it's a deep receiver and tight end class, and that's what we really needed. So it was like I didn't have a problem with them not taking. I wanted Smith and Jigba in the first round for sure.
Me
Was I
too.
disappointed they didn't take him? Was I disappointed they didn't take him? Yes, but ultimately I was like, okay, it's a deep class. I can see them saying, hey, let's take a different position here, a guy we really like, and then we have 2 second-round picks now that we can use on you know those other positions. So yeah, I was glad they got. They ended up with two pretty high tight ends, Musgrave, Kraft. Don't know much about them, but like I'm just glad they went tight end there. And then, you got your receivers, you got uh Jaden Reed, you got Dontavion Wicks. The Reed one, from what I've read about him, I like him. I think he
Mhm.
he should be a exciting guy to have out there. Um, can play kind of slot and seems like a smaller guy, but fast, which is kind of different from what they usually do. I feel like they usually go with the bigger guys, and that's what I was expecting them to do, but they didn't do it this time. So interesting.
And I
Um,
don't mind because you got Dobbs, who's pretty good size. I think he's 6'2", and then obviously Watson, big downfield threat, like 6'4", 6'5". So
yeah,
um, I like the guys they got. I think Van Ness maybe was a little bit of a reach, but I've heard a lot of people say they really like his potential. I know he like didn't start or whatever at Iowa because they don't really do that. Or I don't know. I don't know how that works. They just said the coach doesn't really start underclassmen, and then junior year he played a ton. But yeah. Otherwise, I like the picks. Might be Mason Crosby might be out the door, unfortunately. But I know that
yeah,
leg's gone.
yeah.
Um, can we just have him kick anything within 40 yards?
I know they should just keep him for 40, and then anyone else, and then the over 40, they just bring in this whoever. I don't know. The guy they drafted, I guess, isn't that good, but
I wouldn't be
um,
opposed to it. I mean, I love
yeah,
him
he's
inside
he's
40.
money from under 40. Like he's
Yeah.
just yeah. As far as um, you know, I, going into it, I also was like, okay, I definitely you need to get Love some weapons
Mhm.
because this is basically a feel out year, a judgment year, and a test year for Jordan Love. And you can't have that. You can't really give a great analysis of him unless you have at least some competent weapons.
Yeah.
If you're throwing him out there with basically two guys that can catch passes and nobody else, no tight ends, it's like, okay, how can you really judge him? So I was glad they got some weapons. Again, they didn't get a guy in the first round like I wanted, but I also kind of expected that given that they are the Packers and they don't do that.
Hmm.
So still, I mean, their next 3 picks were on 2 tight ends and a receiver. And then, yeah, the Sean Clifford thing doesn't make any sense. I don't get it.
I didn't
That
get it
dude
either. I'm not even gonna say anything else.
that dude, I feel like you could have gotten him undrafted, and even if someone else was gonna take him, it's like, okay, then that's their problem. Like, th he's not gonna be a starter. I don't think anyone, nobody ever expects him to start in the NFL, and so it's like, if you're just drafting a backup guy in case Jordan Love goes down, well, then just sign someone who's undrafted.
Yeah, or goes. There's got to be 1 or 2 vets that are available or gonna be available.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't understand taking a I just
5th
don't get it.
round.
I just don't get it, yeah, but whatever. I mean,
I'd rather
they're
take
gonna be like,
Max
"Oh,
Duggan, 6th,
we
7th
had him we had him high on our board," and it's like, I don't care, like,
round. We had
I
him.
the the consensus board I saw had him, like, outside of the top 400,
Oh,
and
jeez.
he was 140, like, we drafted him 149? That's
Yeah,
just
that's
not
bad. That's bad.
I I don't get it, but
W
alright. Well, that does it for this episode. Plenty to talk about, but, long off season ahead of us. We're gonna kinda hit the dead period here.
Mhm.
Go
Sad.
Cubs, though. Go Cubs.
Go Brewers. Get the streak going again. Um,
Cubs have been struggling lately.
I know the Brewers blew their lead today. They were up 4-0 and ended up losing. So
Tough. That's tough.
just it's baseball, man. That's why we're not into baseball.
Long season.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we're gonna hit that dead period. So I don't know how often we'll be doing these, but I'm sure, again, once it was good to get one of these
Mhm.
going again now that, the Buck season ended, get our recap thoughts on that. We got playoff stuff. We could do one of these maybe after the finals,
Yeah.
give our finals thoughts. Um, and then, after that, we kind of got to wait till kind of September-ish is when NFL starts, and then month after that, NBA, and then we're back into the thick of it.
Yeah.
Marquette's gonna have their Final Four team, so
Mhm. No Olmax this year.
don't care. Top 5. They're gonna be ranked high, dude. I hope you know that.
They will be. I know. Hey, it's what
Hope
you
you're
do
ready.
with that ranking. It's what you do with it.
Storm's coming. We're coming to Madison this year too.
Yeah, we'll
Madison
see.
takeover.
Usually, the team that loses is the better team for that season.
Revenge tour. We're going on a revenge tour. So
Tyler Kolek, 6 turnovers.
we don't bring up that game. We don't bring up the Kolek Michigan State game. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Peace out.